Bedwars is dying, and I don't say that to be dramatic or clickbaity. I just say that because I genuinely think it is. When I started playing the game about a year and a half ago in early 2021, there were routinely tens of thousands of players online at any given time. And there was always, 1,500, 2,500 solo players playing at one time. And now, every time I log on, there's less than 1,000 solo players active at one time. In fact, usually there's somewhere in the 700s, which means there aren't even 100 games worth of players available at any given time. So that's a dramatic fall off. It's got me concerned. And as a person who really loves the game and wants to keep playing it for a long time in the future, I just thought I wanted to talk a little bit about why I think it's happening, and two, and more importantly, is there anything that can be done to save it? So let's get into that. So first off, why is it dying? The biggest and most obvious reason probably is that the game's getting older. It's now over 5 years old, and it's hard for a game, any game really, to hold an audience's attention for that long. Now, there are definitely games out there that do. A couple that come to mind is like GTA, even a game like Skyrim that has just this insane amount of content and countless hours of things you can do before you start repeating them. Those games can hold attention long term, but even that, most of those games don't. Now, a game like Bedwars, it hasn't evolved. You can get better at it, but it is really the same thing over and over again. And that makes it difficult for it to hold the attention of a large player base for a long period of time. So it's getting older. That's the most obvious reason. And it's probably, honestly, the big reason. The other thing is, though, it isn't really evolving. Now, don't get me wrong. We had an update in the last year, and it was a good update, but it was mostly quality of life. There wasn't anything that really changed the meta. They changed the price on a few things, but essentially the meta was the same before and after that update. It was just a little bit more enjoyable to play and a little smoother of an experience. So they gave effort there, but it was the first really big update in a long time, and it did not do anything for changing the meta. And the last thing that I think really is driving this slow decline in viewership and playership is that the big creators that were really driving the space 3 years ago and 2 years ago have essentially all stopped making Bedwars content. GamerBoy80 posts about once every 2 months. He'll post a Bedwars video. Purple just announced he's going to no longer upload to the Purple channel. And even Technoblade really didn't upload any Hypixel or more specifically Bedwars content for the last year of him making videos. So the big creators left. Those are the players that are driving engagement from a creator perspective. And when that happens, people's attention goes elsewhere. They find other creators playing other games, and slowly the player base starts to shrink over time. So those are the main reasons why I think the game's dying. Is there anything that can be done? And if so, who should be doing it? Well, the obvious answer is Hypixel should be doing it, right? But what can they do? They need to make the game interesting. They need to make it more interesting. The meta has to shift consistently over time. There has to be engaging content for creators to make, and the game just can't feel stale. So they need to have things like item rotations, for instance, rotating new items in, rotating some items out, things that will have to force the meta to change because the meta items are now not in rotation and there's new things that might be a little bit better. I'm not suggesting something as dramatic as Lucky Block and some of those items, but there are definitely ways you can change up the item pool to make the game different. So that's a small thing they could do. It would take a little bit of effort, but a small change that would probably have a real impact. The other thing is they need to have events, big events, like the Bedwars tournaments they've had in the past. I think the Bedwars tournament is really good, but it's not frequent enough. So there is always like 100,000 or more people that join to play on that specific weekend. And there's players before and after that are there, first to practice and then after because they're reminded how much they like to play the game. I think those need to be more consistent. Monthly or at least quarterly, we need to have some version of a Bedwars tournament. They're very fun to play in, but also just gets the attention of the Minecraft competitive scene, and the viewership and playership goes through the roof. And the last thing I'm going to say about tournaments and modes, and this is probably a bit controversial, I'll probably take a little bit of heat for this, but I think there needs to be a ranked Bedwars mode, an official Hypixel ranked Bedwars mode. I know a lot of people are concerned about how toxic that would be, or will it be done well? Assuming that Hypixel can do it well, and it's something similar to like Valorant, for instance, it would give people something to grind to improve their skills instead of just collecting a lot of stats and hoarding them away like a dragon. Because right now, there's nothing realistically you can grind for in Bedwars that won't take you 4 or 5 years to achieve. And I can say that personally, as a person who just started playing about 18 months ago, I have absolutely no dreams associated with trying to get on the lifetime leaderboards. It's never going to happen. They're so out of reach because obviously they haven't updated in 5 years. So giving me something where I can focus on improving as a player instead of grinding for stats would be really good as long as it was done well. And I don't think Hypixel is willing to do it, or maybe isn't even really capable of doing it, but it's something that I think would help. I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts in the comments on that. I know they're probably going to be mostly disagreeing, but it's something that I've always thought and I'll continue to think going forward. And the last thing, as far as what can be done, I've talked about keeping the creators, the big creators, interested. We need to do that. We need the big creators to make content. And there's a lot of really good Bedwars creators out there right now, but the really heavy hitters, like I mentioned, Purpled, Gamerboy80, there's several others. They aren't really making content, and there's a lot of reasons behind that. One, they're not incentivized by the content itself. It's not going to be interesting, so they're not making it. And two, if we're being honest, the best motivator for a young YouTuber, Twitch streamer, is probably financial motivation. So if there's something Hypixel can do to get these creators motivated financially and bring them back to the space, that would be something that could potentially help to get more eyeballs on the game and also more people playing it. I don't know what Hypixel's financial situation is. I don't know if that's something they're capable of doing or willing to do, but if they are, it's something they should consider. Those are my ideas. I love this game. I want this game to be around for years and years to come. I don't know if it will, but I think it's a possibility that it could. And so I just hope Hypixel continues to invest in the product, continues to take the feedback from the community, and hopefully continues to evolve the game. Well, that's really all I have to say about that. I'll see you guys next time.